morning, everyone, and welcome to the Municipal Forum of the Morris County Chamber of Commerce and Economic Development Corporation. I'm Megan Hunter. I'm the President and CEO of the Morris County Chamber, and I welcome you today to this important discussion regarding redevelopment in Morris County. So firstly, I would like to thank our sponsor, Spatial Data Logic. Jack Flood is with us today. He'll make a few remarks. I'd also like to thank the county freeholders. Without them, we cannot put on these important presentations that we bring to you every quarter. Fortunately, we've been able to be virtual and bring you more frequent programming. So thank you to those who have joined us previously, and thank you for joining us today. At the Chamber, we continue our mission virtually. We connect, we convene, we advocate, we educate, and we connect. So thank you for being with us today. So today we have Mayor Mike Stanzilis with Mount Arlington. We're also fortunate to have Michael as the Chamber's VP of Membership and Government Affairs. We also have Mayor Mark Taylor of Florham Park, where the Chamber is located. And we also have Mayor Thaddeus Kobylarz of Borough of Chatham, relatively elected. All three mayors are directly elected in their communities. Two in the eastern portion and one in the western portion. So we'll have a good cross-section of discussion around redevelopment in different parts of the county. So now I'd like to turn it over to Jack Flood for his remarks.
Very good. Thank you, Megan. And thanks again for doing everything you do for local government as well as all the businesses in Morris County. We're a proud sponsor of the Morris County Chamber of Commerce over the last several years. It's one of the most progressive groups we've seen in a Chamber of Commerce, and happy to be a part of this. Spatial Data Logic is a software provider for local government. We provide management software to streamline workflows in towns, such as a redevelopment process, and increase visibility between departments and deliver online services for residents. We've been doing this for 23 years. We have about 200 different clients that we've served in the state of New Jersey, of which 24 we're very proud to have in Morris County alone. And we're always open to future considerations and other ways that we can help towns streamline whatever workflow, whatever process they have in the town better and more, maybe more modern and more recently, more online. So thank you again, Megan, and I will hand it back over to the group to discuss the agenda for the day.
Thank you, Jack, and thank you for your sponsorship. What we're going to do today is we'll start with 5-minute opening statements from each of the mayors to talk about their experience with redevelopment. Then we'll proceed into some Q&A from me, and then we will open it up to questions. So if you have any questions, you can place that in the Q&A if you look on your screen, and for the chat, you can introduce yourselves, but please don't ask any questions there. But you're certainly welcome to introduce yourselves to others. That will be visible. And the Q&A is where we request you put your questions, which you can put at any time. So let's start with the western part of Morris County. Mayor Stanzilis.
Well, thank you, Megan, and good morning, everyone. I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to be part of this great conversation about economic growth and redevelopment. I'm a huge fan of growing my municipality and all of our municipalities. So I just want to start by framing the conversation. So in my world here and in my mind, the goal is to continue to strive to lower our tax rate without sacrificing the services that our residents have come to expect. So I believe, this is my personal opinion, that we can do both. I mean, we can kind of have our cake and eat it too. One of the things that really angers me, of course, is New Jersey is amongst the highest property tax rates in the country. And on top of that, I'm a mayor in a town in New Jersey, so I'm part of the problem and I'm also part of the solution. So I take that very seriously. So my plan and what I do here is called the race to the bottom. And what I mean by that is I'm racing to the bottom of some of the lowest tax towns in our region. I want our town to really be in that bottom 5, 6, 7, 8 towns in the county and the region. So how do we do that? Well, to me, the obvious is by controlling costs, with shared services and consortium buying agreements. There's just a ton of stuff you can do to control costs. And But in my opinion, any good mayor and council, and both these mayors fall under that category, that are worth their salt, they're doing a very good job of controlling costs. Most of the towns here in Morris County are doing a great job of controlling costs, not necessarily throughout the whole state. Now, the other part of it, and I think what we're going to talk about today, is through smart growth, i.e. redevelopment or whatever else that may be. But if you're able to grow your ratables and your revenue from other sources without increasing the stress on your infrastructure, i.e. schools, police, and so forth, my opinion, you need to take that money that comes in through redevelopment and flow it right back to the taxpayers with tax decreases. So, do not spend it. An example would be when the town becomes debt-free, and that debt service money should flow back to the taxpayers and not be buy that new shiny thing or spend it elsewhere, as politicians, when they have money, are tend to do. So we also, here in Mount Arlington, we started an economic development committee when I became mayor. So years ago, I was at the League of Municipalities in Atlantic City, and I saw Megan Huncher speaking when she was with the EDC, the Morris County EDC, and I was just blown away by what the opportunities are out there and what you can do if you really start your own EDC. So we started one here. We had what's called a charrette, which is basically bringing in the population, and we were open to the public to come in and share ideas. We had our planner, our engineers here, all the council, to get buy-in from the beginning on new ideas of the general direction of this town over 5, 10, 20, and 30 years out. You have to have the long view when it comes to redevelopment. Now, this is, of course, we're just talking about the municipal side of the tax equation. We know that schools are a whole nother subject with all their statutory increases, and they can't do as much through smart growth. But to me, we're here to talk about economic development and not the schools. So I just want to quickly review something I find very interesting here in Mount Arlington. So our population growth, and keep in the back of your mind how redevelopment and growth, and it's not all redevelopment. We've had a lot of great developments come on board that weren't redevelopment zones, have impacted our infrastructure and our schools, or have not. And so here's the interesting thing. From 1990 to 2000, our population increased by a whopping 29% versus the New Jersey 9% increase. From 2000 to 2010, we had a smaller increase of 8% versus New Jersey's of 4%. So for the prior two censuses of 90 and 20,000 and 2010, we were 3 times and 2 times greater than the growth in New Jersey. And then from 2010 till now, and we're estimating our census results, we have another 20% increase versus New Jersey, which is 0.9 up into 2019. So to put that into perspective, the last 30 years, our population has grown by 65% versus New Jersey's 15%. In the last 20 years, it's 29 versus 5. And I'll put the schools, I'm going to throw the schools right into this. We haven't had a single addition to our schools in that period, except for a media center. What was the old library is now this beautiful media center. Our schools have done an amazing job handling these fluctuations in growth and the ups and downs in population. But it's a lot of ups. But I think that we were set up in the right position to handle all of this growth. So, that's the story, our history. I know we're going to talk about redevelopments, pilots. I'm looking forward to our conversation, Megan. So thank you. That's Mount Arlington's story, and back to you.
Great, thank you. Now let's go to the great town of Florham Park, where we are located.
Thank you, Megan. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Kelly, for putting this all together. Florham Park is a very unique town. We are 7 square miles, a pretty large area of undeveloped area that we have in town, comprised mostly of swamp area and Route 24 and the like. We continue to fight the element that's behind most of the growth in Florham Park, which is affordable housing. Affordable housing has been a chief example of why Florham Park has changed over the last 25 years or a little bit longer than that. In my tenure of almost 8 years as mayor, I've seen over 600 new units of affordable housing come to Florham Park, which is great. I mean, the building that we've done, we do in a very tasteful manner. But we have another round coming up behind us in 2025, which, vacant land adjustments are not going to be, one of our friends. We don't have a lot of that. So we're going to be faced with another round of affordable housing. And, with affordable housing brings growth, brings more population. So I've tried to do some smart things, tried to introduce some products to Florham Park that are age restricted, 55 and older, no school age children. In fact, though, our school age population is dropping at a pretty alarming rate in town, both in the K through 8 district and at the high school. I was at a budget hearing last year for the high school, and they see a 15% downward turn, whether that relates to children going to private schools and/or population not growing as much. And of course, we all know that people have less children today than they did when I grew up. 5 children, 3-bedroom house, 1 bathroom with my grandmother and a dog. It's a little different today for kids. So, but we continue to see sites like a over 400-acre site on Park Avenue that was formerly the Exxon project. Exxon Research was there for decades, had a very large complex there, and we've redeveloped that, I think, pretty smartly. We started that in 2002. A lot of people are saying, why are you building all that? Well, we approved almost all of that development in my early years in 2005, 6, 7 on the council to build what is there coming today, including the Del Webb project, which, by the way, we closed 35 units in July alone in 2020. So, and given the COVID issue in town and the lockdown of most of our businesses, including the Chamber of Commerce right here on Columbia Turnpike in Florham Park, we've seen our population, of course, is 12,000 almost in the day, at the nighttime in Florham Park. But back before COVID, we would see 60,000 during the day. So we have a very robust commercial value in town. We have some very nice stores and locations in our downtown. We've tried to keep up with all of the nuances with new projects coming to town, and thinking outside the box has been my main modus operandi since I've become mayor of Florham Park. You have to have change, and change might as well be directed. We are the second lowest tax rate in Morris County. I'm proud to say that we are a AAA bond rated town. We're one of 16 in New Jersey that hold that honor. We continue to pay down debt, and like Mayor Stanzilis said earlier, my outlook is to be debt-free in the next few years. I incurred a lot of debt in the past years of coming on board here, and I want to get this town debt-free. And how do you do that? You skinny down things. You don't evade the services that you've given to your residents, and every time we need something new, we have to look at it. We've bought several trucks from county auctions. We bought trucks from former sites that were closed down, and we rehabbed the trucks and put them back on the road rather than buying new. So I think that we've been fiscally responsible. We're trying to grow as fiscally responsible as we can and continue to get that growth pattern so we have the ratables to keep us growing. I think that's all that I have to say, and I want to thank everyone on this panel for allowing me the time, and I look forward to hearing from Chatham as well. And Thad, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. And now I'd like to hand it over to Chatham Borough, Mayor Kobylarz.
Thank you, Megan, and thank you for inviting me to this discussion. This is a great thing to have, and I'm glad we're here together to talk about a very, very important issue, I think, here in Morris County. I think one of the starting points that from which we proceed here in Chatham Borough is just the fundamental realization that redevelopment is not just about construction of new buildings. More fundamentally, it really is about improving the quality of life and the environment as a result of sound planning practices, as well as sound fiscal decision making. As such, a key component of this really is economic development or economic revitalization. And I've seen that my 2 colleagues here have been focusing on that. That's pretty much our focus as well. In our case, the guiding principles of this economic revitalization effort here in Chatham Borough has been first and foremost to achieve a reasonable increase in tax revenue, which has already been pointed out, helps keep taxes down. But it's also been, in our case, a careful management, if not limitation, of the physical growth. We're a 2.45 square mile village, and as a consequence, we really don't have much room for physical growth. And also, there's a widespread feeling here in Chatham Borough that that we have a very charming small town character and village-like feel, and this is something that we'd like to preserve. So becoming overly dense is not a direction that we like to go. As a consequence, our focus really has been more on, and will be more on commercial and or quasi-industrial redevelopment of our downtown areas. The goal is to revitalize economically our downtown areas, specifically, if you know Chatham, Main Street, and more urgently, the River Road and Lower Watchung areas along the Passaic River. The River Road and Lower Watchung areas are a kind of quasi-industrial zone that probably had its heyday back in the 1960s. It looks very last century. We would like to upgrade that and bring that into the 21st century and keep it, preserve its character of this quasi-industrial feel, and add a mix of some commercial redevelopment there. And the way that we would like to do that is we're hoping to pivot to the new economy. And that is the new quasi-industrial economy, high-tech, the knowledge-based economy, the innovation economy. This has become a sort of vision, a roadmap for revitalizing our downtown economy. And in so doing, we hope to boost our tax revenues while preserving the distinctive character of Chatham Borough, and also keep our infrastructure costs down. Going gangbusters in terms of residential development here in Chatham Borough, we think would be a mistake because it does raise our infrastructure costs considerably. It adds to the burden on our schools, for example. So the idea is to bring in daytime employees and workers, and this would help spawn a secondary economy, we believe, a support economy. If you've got, let's say, a tech company that's moving into our River Road area, you're going to need restaurants, you're going to need eateries, you're going to need cafes, you're going to need IT shops, you're going to need business consultants, intellectual property attorneys. And so you spawn an ecosystem. And to that effect, we initiated basically a program, this was about 2 years ago, that we now call Startup Move Up Chatham. It's part of a broader program that we're working closely with the Morris County Economic Development Corporation with, and that is Startup Move Up Morris County, whose goal it is to bring in tech and innovation economies into the region, specifically here in Chatham Borough, at least as the flagship municipality. And this will help revitalize our downtown economy, fill up many of our vacant office space, engage in rehabilitation programs with respect to, or projects with respect to some of our underutilized and somewhat dilapidated real estate along River Road, and perhaps even engage in some new construction down there. Now, why tech? Why technology? Why innovation economy? Well, tech companies and the innovation economy sector is basically a high multiplier in terms of jobs. For every tech job you create, you get multiple other support jobs. Hence, tech and innovation, we believe, is good for economic development. We've started, as I said, in this direction. We've taken some initial steps. For example, for the past year, we've been working, partnering with the Morris County Economic Development Corporation to brand and market Chatham Borough as a tech and innovation economy hub. They have actually helped assist us with some of the development on the website that is currently under construction. The second thing that or step that we've taken is a partnership with the Garibaldi Group. Garibaldi Group is a fairly large and well-known commercial real estate firm in New Jersey, and they own a landmark building in our downtown area, which is called the Garibaldi Building. Happens to be our former Borough Hall. It's a historic structure, and that was converted into a co-working space last year, and an innovation economy themed co-working space. It's right adjacent to the train station, so it's been appropriately named or dubbed the station. This co-working space is pretty much going to be the focal point, I think, of Chatham Borough's Technology Innovation Hub initiative. It'll serve as a venue for technology, business, cultural gatherings, conferences, tech shows, educational events. It's already been a venue for public talks, many technology and innovation economy themed. Happily, they've attracted their first economy or innovation economy full-time resident, and that's the company Boxcar. And you know, we hope to see more move there. The third step that we are about to undertake is to avail of a bill that was signed into law last year in Trenton that allows municipalities to designate certain zones as innovation districts. River Road, Lower Watchung, perhaps even parts of Main Street will be designated as an innovation district. This will help serve to brand these parts of Chatham Borough as a destination for technology and innovation firms. The bill's author is actually Assemblyman James Kennedy of LD 22. We brought him to Chatham Borough to do a tour of the area. He was very excited, I should say, about the potential for River Road as a destination for tech and innovation economy firms, in particular because of its proximity to Bristol, the Bristol Myers, former Celgene, presently Bristol Myers Research and Development Facility right across the Passaic River in Summit. This is really an anchor for the area in terms of growing a tech and innovation economy ecosystem down there, and we hope to capitalize on that. And he came out and actually stated in no uncertain terms that the basis exists in this area for turning this part of Chatham Borough into a thriving economic and commercial district for the 21st century. So we've also, and I think one of my colleagues mentioned the creation of an economic development committee or advisory committee. We've gone that route too. I mean, that's absolutely essential, and I'm happy to see more and more, I think, Morris County municipalities doing precisely that and working closely with the Morris County Economic Development Corporation. You know, we live in a time where I think it's absolutely essential to be proactive with regard to economic development, and this is a useful instrument for doing so. That's part of you know, our basically the activity of Borough Hall here in Chatham Borough in general, but this also, they do a lot of work right now with the, in keeping with this startup move up Chatham Borough project that we've embarked on. So that's where we go. We're pursuing an economic angle, and we're pursuing, in particular, we're focusing on that sector of the economy that we think is poised for considerable growth in the coming years, and that's technology and innovation development firms.
Wonderful. Well, thank you all three for your opening remarks. We're glad to at the EDC and Chamber, of course, support all of your efforts. And I appreciate Mike's reaction to my presentation at the League conference many years ago. You never know how you're going to affect the audience. So I certainly appreciate the feedback. One of the common themes I heard the three of you talk about is the importance of managing change, which is inevitable. And the title of our seminar today is Increasing Tax Revenue and Managing Growth. Having been a city planner in one of the densest states in the country, I know that there's a lot of complexity to this and some sophistication, and of course, educating your residents and voters Obviously, what you've said has resonated with your constituents. So perhaps you could share a little bit about your success and how perhaps those in communities where it's been challenging to even have a discussion about redevelopment, it may be a bad word in some places, how perhaps you've been successful communicating the importance of this approach within your communities. Who would like to take that first?
I'd love to. You know, Florham Park has been a town that was a bedroom community for generations. I've lived here for my entire life, just celebrating my 61st birthday, unfortunately. My parents moved here in 1952, where there was 4,000 residents at the time. We're now 12,000 residents. Do I like to see a lot of the growth that we've been impacted by? No. Would I like to have been able to cull down the amount, the sheer volume of growth? Yes, and I tried to communicate that with all of our residents that, yes, we want you to come out to the planning board meetings. We want you to go to the redevelopment meetings that we have. We want you to come to our council meetings, and we want you to hear what we're doing, because we're not bad people. We live here too. We have to do, in some instances, especially with affordable housing, we have to do these redevelopment projects. And Mayor Stanzilis spoke of it earlier, pilots and other items that the other categories that take us out of the box have really been a great modus to try and grow the town in its, you know, a proper way without hurting everything in its ecosystems and our swamplands that are around us. We are a swamp. Florham Park, Morris County, Lower Morris County is a swamp. You know, Mayor of Chatham will tell you, we have Passaic River running through us. We have many tributaries that are, you know, that need to be safeguarded, and that's one of our principal obligations. But we do have some great things going on. We have Cellularity moving to Florham Park. Dr. Herrera, you may have seen him on Channel 2 News and recently on Channel 5. He talks of his main product is to cure cancer. But in stumbling through the cancer methods that they use, they found that the product that they're developing also has a very good antibody for what is COVID. So we're very happy to have taken a building that was sitting for 5 years vacant, had tax appeal after tax appeal on it. They rehabbed the entire building, put millions of dollars into it, and that's the way that we're substantially growing our commercial side without infecting the or affecting the environment around it. That's a building that was laying there. We were able to get them to come there and move into it. We have a product on Vreeland Road in our commercial area. Building's been vacant for over 10 years. I've just learned of a new commercial entity that's coming there that will help us to put that building back on its feet. So those are some things that we do to try and properly rebuild and expand as we have to keep our tax base intact.
Wonderful. Mayor Kobylarz, I know you're the newer mayor on the block here. How did you convey to your constituents the importance of redevelopment and have them become a receptive audience?
I should begin by noting that this conveyance, if you will, is still a work in progress. We've got several redevelopment projects in town that are being considered right now, and one of which is controversial. I'll admit, and the reason for that is that it is a highly dense a project in our downtown area that a number of residents have expressed their concern about. And the concern is that, and one I understand, is that given the fact that Chatham Borough is a small village, a 2.45 square mile municipality, there is the threat of this overwhelming presence in our downtown, which would dramatically alter the character of our downtown. And I'm sympathetic to those concerns. I think that one of the things that I've come to realize is that a key consideration in any sort of broad redevelopment strategy is trying to strike a healthy balance. And the healthy balance has to be between such considerations as perhaps additional residential units, but also the commercial redevelopment even not just the construction of new buildings, but also conservation and/or the rehabilitation and even refurbishment of existing structures as well. This is something that seems to be, I think, an appropriate strategy for Chatham Borough in particular, for all the reasons I've just canvassed. The fact that it is a small town, it's a more village-like place. So I think, in short, the answer here is that focusing more on commercial redevelopment, I think, seems to be a strategy for Chatham Borough, and you know, the sort of spillover effects that would have in terms of revitalizing not only our already existing businesses, but filling up the office space, which will increase in itself the valuation of those properties, and that can lead to an increase in tax revenue, is something that we're hoping for. And so that's our approach. And technology again, I think that sector of the economy is a growing one. And actually, if I just may quickly add that, you know, just point out that New Jersey was the original Silicon Valley. And I think a lot of people forget that. I mean, we had everything from pharma to biotech to telecoms here. They helped grow our economy in the middle part of the 20th century. Now, for whatever reason, there has been a decline in that. A lot of it is because of just the dynamics of venture capital funding. It seems that New York, Massachusetts, and California all do much better than New York or New Jersey. And I think that what is needed is to create ecosystems around the state that will help nurture the return of tech companies. And I'm very much hoping that Chatham Borough, and by extension, Morris County, will be the beginning of this process and help bring back to New Jersey.
Thank you. So Mayor Stanzilis, what do you recommend? I know you do weekly videos to your constituents. What would you recommend as a good messaging or communication strategy around redevelopment for those in elected positions considering this approach?
That's a great question. I don't always do weekly because it depends on what's going on. But yeah, to your point though, how you communicate with your constituents and transparency is about getting buy-in, right? So for me, what are the first questions people ask when they come to your town from outside and they're considering moving here? We all know it. It's how are the schools and how are the taxes? So you have to frame it in that, and everything impacts that. You overpopulate, you're going to put too much stress on the schools. If you don't have enough new revenue, new money coming in, your taxes will continue to rise because of statutory increases. So I think to get buy-in from the constituents is a very challenging and very interesting concept. And I'll tell you, I've sat many years, we combined our zoning and planning board into a land use board, and I was the chairman of that for a long time. People, it seems like they care and they don't care. You all know when things are going good, both mayors, not many people show up to your council meetings. But when things are bad, you get the whole pitchfork crowd out. You try to communicate with them as much upfront as possible, but people will not notice that there's a new building going up until after the shovel hits the ground. Although you've had numerous, sometimes several years of land use meetings and council meetings, redevelopment meetings. So it's really difficult. And I think now it's more important than ever to really sort of force the communication out there on the constituents so they know what's going on. Again, the Economic Development Committee and doing a charrette for me was a big thing. And a charrette is just bringing in, open to the public. We broke out into work groups. I mean, we had a great day. I got a hotel conference room here in town, but it's really about transparency and I think overtly communicating what your plans are.
Wonderful. So the three of you also touched on advisors in some form. So whether it's volunteers on an economic development committee, could you talk a little bit about the importance of your trusted advisors, your attorneys, perhaps tax consultants, city planners, the importance of hiring and retaining those kinds of advisors to help guide you in your communities?
I'll start again. I think that most importantly, you know, we have a planning board attorney, we have a borough attorney, and I think most importantly that our planning board attorney tells the story that helps us communicate with our residents in that like-minded manner. Whereas, you know, we're building a project on Vreeland Road that's transforming what was an industrial site into residential. And the importance of a project such as this to meet our fair share housing and get out to our constituents. Again, it's all about communication and transparency to make sure that our residents are up to speed of what's going on. You know, we have a very active group in our assessors department. We continue to add ratables. Almost $60 million last year was added to our ratable list. We have $3,300,000 in ratables in the borough of Florham Park, which I think has been a monumental task. We've taken properties that were tax exempt. One was a church and made it into self-storage, very low amount of traffic and volume for the community, but it brought a $6 million property back onto the tax rolls. So I think communicating those very good things through both our tax assessor's office, our CFO, our consultants that we hire for our planning and zoning board, and most of all, our attorneys for both the borough and for the planning board, to make sure that the residents get the complete story of what's happening in the borough and how that transition of a office building is going to be residential and will be low impacted, because it will be you know, a 55 or older community that will someday maybe be a home for myself or my family. So I think that's very important.
Great. Mayor Kobylarz?
Yeah, I'd say two things. First of all, you know, look, we all live in communities that are a stone's throw from one of the you know, greatest, the largest, most economically dynamic centers on the planet, and that's New York City. You know, as a consequence, we have a wealth of highly educated professionals that are you know, that are residents in our municipalities. And so I think it's essential that we cast as wide a net as possible to try to take advantage of this expertise, which is often available for free through the, you know, just volunteering. You know, this is yet another reason, I think, to set up such a committee as an Economic Development Advisory Committee. In our own case, this has proven to be actually a very attractive proposition. We have over 20 volunteers on this committee, and we have lawyers, we have MBAs, we have CEOs, we have marketing professionals, we have people that are in tech. You know, I often joke amongst them that this is we have the basis of you know, a really terrific startup right here, you know, in itself, if we could put our minds together and come up with a great idea. So I would say that, you know, the first thing is, you know, take advantage of volunteers, because not only do we have the expertise, but you're also getting a real sense of what the of what your community really does want to go do, and what sort of direction they want to go into. The second thing, you know, I've only been in office since January, but I was a council member for a couple of years before that. I think that I think it's really essential to carefully vet your professionals. A lot of our professionals, I mean, it has to be said, and I'm sure my colleagues here would agree, can be guns for hire. You know, if you say you want red, they'll say red. If you say you want blue, they'll say blue. They'll tell you whatever you want to hear, as long as they get paid. So I think you have to look really deeply and make sure that those professionals are in sync with your vision. Especially if you feel very strongly about the direction that you want to go. Now, they may alter your direction. I mean, you don't want to, I mean, the point is, you don't want an echo chamber. You want someone that will give you a realistic assessment of what the options are, but won't necessarily try to steer you in the direction they want to go in. That will respect the choice that you make, given those options that are presented to you. So.
Great advice. Mayor Stanzilis.
Yes, I agree with both my colleagues. It's important, and for me, to have a vision. I mean, the residents look to me for what my vision is for the future of the town. And there are three things I'd like to say about your question. And that is, the first one is Jessica Caldwell, our town planner, who is of Caldwell Associates, who is a partner of ours in more ways than you can imagine. She shares our vision. To Thad's point, she tells us where the minefields are. The second thing I'd like to say is, of course, Jessica Caldwell. And the third thing is Jessica Caldwell. She is our planner extraordinaire. Without her, we wouldn't have been able to navigate our way through what was formerly known as COA, affordable housing. So that is so important, having a great planner.
Music to my ears, Mayor. Music to my ears.
That's right. You are a planner by training.
I am. You talked about the identity of your communities, and when I speak to municipalities, I often talk about your town almost being a product of sorts, right? So you're selling your community, what you have to offer. Mayor Stanzilis mentioned schools, the quality of the schools, obviously diversity of the economy that both Florham Park and Chatham discussed as well. Can you talk a little bit about your outreach to your local businesses? I know, Mayor Taylor, you have a very strong communication with them, and kind of the importance of both welcoming businesses and letting businesses that currently exist in your communities know that you appreciate them. How, Mayor Taylor, have you kind of gone about doing that, knowing that you also have a full-time job and a family? And so how do you balance, your outreach to existing businesses with, of course, bringing in new businesses? Do you have is there a secret sauce to that?
It's called nights and weekends. So I think it's vital and important to show, especially in this economy and under the guides that we're under right now, to show these businesses in our communities that we care. We want to help them to succeed, to get back open. We've had, many businesses that didn't have the outside eatery open for, the diner or little small dining halls that are in town, didn't have a method for people to eat outside. And I actually went to the council and said, look, we need to bend. We can't be this community that says you can't have outside eating because. So we allowed all of the outside restaurants, all the restaurants that wanted to be outside, we allowed them to put the tent up to make areas where people could eat. We allowed businesses that didn't normally have didn't normally use inside product, did exercises on their front lawns, did exercises here on the borough lawn. We've tried to make every accommodation possible to allow these businesses to get revitalized and reopened. Insofar as getting to these businesses, I visit most of them on a regular basis. I do many grand opening, ribbon cuttings, parties to reopen at Dunkin' Donuts a couple of weeks ago. We went to a new eatery that just opened up in the center of town just the other day, and just visited with them to show that we care. We're here to help you. We do have on our website, we list, welcome to Florham Park is part of our product, but we have visit Florham Park as part of our method to, all the businesses are listed on there. You can click on them, you can see their phone number, you can see their address and what they do. So we're very interested in keeping our businesses open and as well welcoming them back if they have been closed during this COVID issue.
Wonderful. Mayor Kobylarz.
Yeah, I know. I would agree with everything that Mayor Taylor just stated. I think that outreach is absolutely essential. I mean, first of all, it's a form of intelligence gathering. You really have to know what you're contending with in terms of the needs of your businesses to be able to help them in the first place. And often, I mean, it's every once in a while we'll get some business owners that will consult us or try to reach out to us. But I found that for the most part, it really is important for us to be proactive. there is a kind of reluctance on the part of business owners to even admit that they're facing some form of adversity. Human pride will often get in the way there. So go there. And to that extent, we do several things. I mean, we have we have some in-house people in the borough. We have a community affairs director that actually does this regularly, and she does a terrific job. And I'll give her a shout out, Janice Piccolo, and I'm sure she'll be happy to hear that if she's watching. But this is also increasingly something that we're having our newly hatched Economic Development Advisory Committee do. But I do it myself, much as Mark just described. I will walk around town. I sometimes do it with the police chief. I sometimes do it with our borough administrator. And we'll just pop in from one business to another and say, hi, hey, how are things going? And it's a way to get to know people. It's a way to get to truly know people, because, after about 2 or 3 minutes of niceties, then they start to really divulge and share what they're experiencing. And it was that way I found, for example, in June, doing a walkabout, as we call it here in Chatham Borough, that a lot of our businesses were down 80% in terms of their revenue on the year, and I mean, that's frightening. I pray every day and every night that our businesses survive. Look, being pro-business is being a humanitarian. You're talking about people's livelihoods here. You're also talking about the property values of homeowners in our community, and 9 out of 10 cases, that's their nest eggs. It's absolutely essential that we all pull together to support our businesses during this very tough period and to keep them afloat. And so this communication is absolutely essential, and we're doing it, as I just stated, on multiple levels.
And Mayor Stanzilis, I know when the pandemic first hit, I believe you actually went to each of your restaurants and purchased something, correct?
I bought so much food and supplies from each place. I had a video and really tried to encourage our residents to go out and support our businesses. Unfortunately, one of our bagel sandwich shops didn't survive. The hairdresser is teetering. So, we're on the verge of some of the businesses not making it, but overall, most of them, the customer-facing businesses, are making it. Most of them have my cell number. They do call, mostly just to complain about something's happening out on the roads, milling and paving. We do have a ton of office space here with international companies and large, engineering firms, Nisovachia, Mazer, those folks are here, Mars. They're in a different stratosphere than the restaurants, the bagel shops, the hairdressers, who are really, really struggling. And, as mayors, we need to do everything we can to let the people know that let's go buy local.
Yeah, could I add something, Megan? I just want to add that another thing that we've undertaken is an effort to reach out to our businesses and advise them on state and federal grants that have been made available throughout the COVID-19. I like to say, I mean, it's often referred to as a public health crisis. I like to say economic crisis too, because there are multiple layers of this pandemic crisis.
To that point, when the CARES Act came and money was made available, $45 million in the state of New Jersey was made available. It was not available to Morris County. I just want everyone to know that 9 counties in New Jersey received that money. And when I spoke on the governor's call many Thursdays in a row about why isn't Morris County, well, you have money up there, which I think is absolutely wrong. These businesses were suffering. Just assume the businesses in those 9 counties that received that money. So back to the other comments about getting relief for these businesses. We need to do all we can to help them get back up and running.
Yeah, and I agree with that wholeheartedly. I mean, there's no reason why.
So one of the things, and this is obviously we're on a Chamber of Commerce EDC call, but the Chamber posted, codified, culled an extraordinary amount of material that was all over the place and brought it into one area where you can look at the PPP, the CARES Act, unemployment, and all of that. So we took that information and shared that with our constituents and our businesses as well. I think the Chamber did a great job of helping us do all that legwork.
Well, this is a good segue into my next question. Of course, I don't want to put you in the hot seat on it, but it's the elephant in the room. So let's talk a little bit about the state. We know there's currently no incentives that are available for businesses to come into New Jersey. So the tools that you have at your disposal include pilots, permitting. We know in New Jersey, home rule allows individual municipalities to have their own master plan, and you can do your own, obviously your own redevelopment studies. So there's some question marks going forward around the future of commercial real estate. Of course, we certainly hope that businesses return, even if it's not 100% of the workforce, that there would be some return to the pre-COVID work experience. But perhaps for our last question, you could talk a little bit about the tools at your disposal as mayors that you've used or that you encourage other towns to use to help perhaps smooth the development process. So we all know that permitting and zoning is a reality, but have you done certain things to make the process smoother for businesses, and any recommendations that you might have? Mayor Taylor?
We have. The borough has a long-standing relationship with its commercial sites, and a lot of those sites have very similar uses that are coming back into buildings that have become vacant and or properties that will be subdivided down and lesser space for more tenants. So we've streamlined the process, whereas coming before the planning board has taken the place of our engineer evaluating the site, making sure that it's fit and has air conditioning and has heating, has parking for the use that wants to come there, and approving it, and then letting the planning board know that the following sites were preempted at the planning board and have been approved to move in. Insofar as the state, I don't know that that we've received any real guidance or help on that. I think we've tried to navigate as best we can through the rough waters that we face in the last year or so, in the last 6 months, and what we will be facing in the next couple of years. Certainly buildings that are huge in stature and have several thousand employees in them in the borough, I understand, and we'll try to help to bring those businesses back in smaller fashion, subdividing out portions of those buildings to be able to have multiple businesses in there, as well as bringing in new concepts and new companies to that, what we talked about before with the tech arena and those properties that are set up for that, such as General Dynamics here in Florham Park. They have a huge building. They've brought back many, many employees and continue to thrive in the borough of Florham Park.
Yeah, so the tools that we like to use, of course, are the standard tools, and you don't need to reinvent the wheel. Redevelopment zones and pilots. I will go to the redevelopment, and Mayor Kobylarz made a great point. It's not all about buildings for residents and adding more density. There's mixed use. There is, again, we need, if you have, depending on your town. Now, obviously, Chatham is built out. You couldn't bring in a warehouse for an Amazon, but Florham Park has a lot of still available space. There are other towns that have that space. So for us, we just deemed 3 areas of town in need of redevelopment, which kind of opens the door. We are open-minded to discussions on how those will be developed. One of the things I think for the affordable housing piece of it is, everybody has a different view on how that should look. My opinion and my view, and it comes from, I lived in New York City for a long time before I moved out here, is integrate and spread it out. Don't have a building that is an affordable housing building, but spread that out into our communities. With us, our co-op housing is all, no one knows where it is because it's spread out throughout the whole town. It's fantastic. So those are the tools. I think the redevelopment, it's all the stuff we're talking about. I think a pilot is very important if it's proper. Some developers will say we're not going to get the financing without the pilot. So you either have a project or you don't. So in my opinion, if it works, the pilot, we have a pilot here now that we just did a few years ago that's worked out incredibly well. And then the schools, there's a sort of misunderstanding about how that works with the schools. Obviously, you do not have to give any of that money to them, but that's really not the point. The school tells the municipality what their budget is. By law, we have to collect it. Whether we can pay ourselves, our police or not, we have to pay them first, no matter what they say. So the pilot really is not part of the schools. Mayor Taylor, you're right about the age-restricted communities. Is a very smart thing to do. We've done several age-restricted developments that haven't had an impact on the schools that have helped us. We've lowered our tax rate in the last 5 years, thanks to these new developments, by 21 basis points, as opposed to increasing it 2% every year. So, but you can't always do that. You've got to, have your hand on the budget because statutory increases are going to come. But our revenue is strong based on, I think, the redevelopments, the new developments, and the pilots. So yeah, the tools that are out there, the state, for me, home rule is a thing that we're living with because we're not getting anything from the state in terms of incentivizing businesses to come to our towns. But I think there's a heck of a lot we can do with or without the state, for sure.
Wonderful. Mayor Kobylarz, would you like to bring it home?
Yeah, I was glad that Mike pointed out one thing, and that is the use of pilots, but in the context also of commercial redevelopment. I mean, a lot of people have this misconception that pilots just apply solely to residential redevelopment projects, and that's not true. And that can be a useful tool, I think, for attracting businesses to our towns, and that is something that we're looking at here in Chatham Borough. I'd like to actually point out to something. Basically, it's a lament, a complaint I have, a criticism of New Jersey and of the state, and I wish New Jersey would reconsider and perhaps move in a different direction. And that has to do with with tax breaks for startups and for early stage tech and innovation firms. This is I alluded to the fact, or I pointed out before, that New Jersey was the original Silicon Valley, and pointed out that today a number of tech firms are not coming to New Jersey, and startups will begin in New Jersey and then they'll move elsewhere because they're looking for tax havens. Look, if you're trying to bootstrap a company, you need every bit of assistance that you possibly can get to get that thing to up and running. It really, I know scores of people that are operating on a wing and a prayer, in order to get their companies up, and you're rooting for them, because if they get their companies going, they hire people in your community, and they also create there's a spillover effect. They create a secondary economy. They help spawn a secondary economy. Now, where are companies going right now? These sort of companies, many will start here in New Jersey, and they'll move to Massachusetts or to California. Why? Because they can. There are tax incentives in those states for these companies. I'm a very strong advocate of creating similar tax breaks here in New Jersey. A rising tide lifts all boats, and you would find that this would actually have a salutary effect, if not impact, on our economy. It would help actually, it could ultimately work wonders for New Jersey, and perhaps restore New Jersey to its former tech and innovation and economy leadership. And particularly because we are right next door to the financial capital of there is so much money in New York City waiting to be spent on companies, startups, and early stage companies here in New Jersey, if we could get them somehow to stay here.
Well, thank you, mayors. We're at the top of the hour. Thank you for your leadership, your inspiration, your vision, for all that you do for your constituents, for Morris County. for your communities. Really extraordinary to hear from you today. Thank you for taking an hour out of your busy schedule to be with the Chamber and the EDC. So we wish you well. We wish your communities well. We hope that you can join us again at another seminar in the future.
Okay.
So thank you. Thank you for being with us today. Have a
Thank you,
wonderful
Megan.
afternoon.
Thank you, Mike.